MSI's new rated GE68 has a problem. Don't get me wrong, it is a decent gaming laptop, as you'll see in this review. But last year's version was great too, and cost way less. So let's find out if the new changes make the 2023 model worth it. The GE68 has a black metal finish on both the lid and interior. Build quality feels nice, despite the red and gold trimmed plastic at the back that made it feel a bit dated. But of course, that's subjective, and I'm an old man. There's customizable RGB lighting in the lid logo, as well as on the front bar. It's using a clear plastic, so you can see the individual lights. Again, it's personal preference, but I liked last year's GE67 look more. There's only a little keyboard flex when pushing hard. The metal lid felt fairly sturdy, and so did the hinge even when ripping the lid open fast. The edge of the lid sticks out a little, making opening easy, though the screen doesn't go back as far as many others, at just 125 degrees. But I never had a problem with it. It's a little bigger this year, particularly in depth, because that taller 16x10 screen needs to go somewhere. The laptop alone weighs 2.7 kilos or 6 pounds, increasing to almost 3.8 kilos or 8.3 pounds with a 280 watt charger included. My GE68 has an Intel Core i9-13950 HX processor, NVIDIA RTX 4070 graphics, and a 16-inch screen. But there are other configurations for less money. You can check prices below the video. There's a 1080p camera, just like last year. But unlike last year, it now has a privacy shutter and IR for Windows Hello Face Unlock. Here's how the camera and microphones look and sound, and this is what it sounds like while typing on the keyboard. The keyboard has per-key RGB lighting, and all keys and secondary functions get lit up. There are 4 levels of RGB brightness control available by holding function and pressing the F8 key, and this does the front light bar too. But there's way more customization and effects available through the included SteelSeries software. The WASD keys are transparent, but we had a tough time actually seeing the white lettering on them as it's right over the lights. I don't know, I just don't think it looked very good, especially when compared to the illustration provided on MSI's website, which is much more readable. My partner didn't like the similar effect on the arrow keys, but that did not bother me anywhere near as much, though this is of course personal preference. Anyway, I thought typing felt good. The keys were a little clicky, but the small right shift might annoy some. The touchpad is big and feels nice and smooth, but we had a fixable problem. For some reason, when we got it, the front right corner was very hard to press down. It didn't move at all in some spots. It was perfectly fine after opening the laptop to film the internals though. That seemed to resolve whatever the issue was, so guessing this was just a random one-off thing. The left side has a Type-C Thunderbolt 4 port, SD card slot, and 3.5mm audio combo jack. The right side has 2 USB 3.2 Type-A ports. The one closer to the front is slower Gen 1, while the back one is faster Gen 2, and the Type-C port is faster Gen 2 as well. The rest of the ports are on the back. From left to right, there's 2.5 gigabit Ethernet, HDMI 2.1, another USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type-C port, and the rectangle on the right is the power input. The Ethernet port is not facing the preferred way, but it's high enough that you can still remove it without lifting the laptop. This bit of plastic on the back kind of hangs out over the ports, which just made it annoying when trying to plug anything in because it means you can't see without turning it around. I really wish they at least put port icons into the plastic above the ports. It's purely aesthetic too, because it comes off. Only the Type-C port on the right can be used to charge the laptop, but all 3 Type-C ports offer DisplayPort support, so you can connect a monitor to any of them. The Type-C ports on the back and right connect directly to the NVIDIA graphics, whether Optimus is on or off. But because the one on the left is Thunderbolt, it connects to the Intel integrated graphics, so it only works if Optimus is enabled. If you turn Optimus off, then you can't use DisplayPort on that one at all. We also confirmed HDMI connects to the NVIDIA graphics, and it can run a 4K screen at 120Hz 12-bit with G-Sync. Getting inside requires removing 13 Phillips head screws, all the same length. It was a little challenging to open, but not too hard. You'll definitely want pry tools. The ones I use are linked below the video. Inside we've got the battery down the front, 2 memory slots just above near the middle, 2 M.2 storage slots to the left of that, and the Wi-Fi 6E card on the far left. This year, one of the M.2 slots actually supports PCIe Gen 5. There aren't a whole lot of SSDs that support that just yet, but might be nice in the future. The second slot is Gen 4. The speeds from the installed 2TB Gen 4 SSD were excellent, but the SD card was only average. A good slot can do 2 to 3 times this with my card. The card does not click in, but it sits most of the way into the machine, so lower risk of bumping. Wi-Fi speed was above average compared to most other laptops tested, and a little quicker compared to last year's GE67, which used the same Wi-Fi card. Upgradability score was decent here, as we can change both memory slots, both M.2 slots, which both support double-sided SSDs, and the Wi-Fi card. The speakers are found down the front on the left and right sides, and they're front-firing too. There's some bass and they get loud enough, but I thought they sounded a little muffled. Now, I'm no audio engineer, but I have to wonder if they might have sounded better with more holes instead of making them spell out MSI. The Latencymon results weren't amazing, but far from the worst we've seen in 2023. The GE68 is powered by a 99 watt-hour battery. The MSI Center software has a super battery performance mode, which we've used for testing battery life. The software also has the display power saver option on by default, which lowers the screen's refresh rate down to 60 Hz when you unplug the charger to save power. The screen flashes black as the refresh rate changes, and it automatically goes back up when you plug back in. It almost lasted for 4.5 hours, which is a pretty typical result from a modern Intel gaming laptop when compared to others, though not quite as impressive as some of the AMD results. It did quite well when running a game though, lasting for just over 2 hours. Let's check out thermals next. We've got 2 fans with 3 heat pipes shared between the CPU and GPU, both of which have MSI's liquid metal pad. Last year's did not have that on both, and although this year's cooler has 1 less heat pipe, last year's only had 2 going between the CPU and GPU. The bottom panel has plenty of air intake holes directly over the fans, and air gets exhausted out of both the left and right sides, as well as out of the corners on the back. The MSI Center software allows us to change between different performance modes, which from lowest to highest are silent, balanced, and extreme performance. Extreme performance mode allows us to enable cooler boost, which sets the fans to full speed, or customize the fans in advanced mode. We can also overclock the GPU, but there is not an overclock by default, which is how we've tested. You can also hold function and press the up arrow key at any time to max out the fan, and this does not require any special software. It even works in Linux. The internal temperatures were cool when just sitting there idle. The rest of the results are from combined CPU and GPU stress tests, which aim to represent a worst case full load scenario. Balanced mode was the warmest, but extreme mode was actually quite cool. The cooling pad I test with, linked below the video, was able to lower temps by a couple of degrees extra. It was cooler if we instead max out the fans, but as you'll hear soon, this is louder too. Interestingly, it wasn't warmer with the lid closed, so no problem at all docking it. These are the clock speeds being reached in the same tests. There's no real difference in performance in extreme mode, as there's no thermal throttling, so it all comes down to how loud you want the fans. The GPU clock speeds are exactly the same, because we're hitting Nvidia's voltage limit. This prevents the GPU running beyond about 90 watts in this workload, though some workloads can run up to the maximum 140 watts. But this doesn't include most games, and I've explained it in a dedicated video. The different performance modes don't really affect performance in an actual game though, with extreme and balanced modes scoring the same. The CPU can use way more power and hit thermal throttling when the GPU is idle, like in Cinebench. Extreme mode was a little better because there was less thermal throttling due to the faster fans, as that was done with cooler boost on. It's an impressive score compared to other laptops tested, and our highest multi-core result from an Intel processor so far. only beaten by AMD's Ryzen 9 7945 HX. The single-core score isn't quite as good as the higher-tier 13980 HX laptops, as those have higher single-core turbo speeds. It's a fair bit better compared to last year's GE67, as Intel's 12th gen chips had 8 fewer E-cores. Performance lowers if we unplug the charger and instead run purely off of battery power, but it's still an excellent result compared to the other laptops. Asus's Scar 18 was now in the lead in multi-core, but not by much. Most laptops I test are in the low 30°C range on the keyboard at idle, and the GE68 was right in line with this. It's warmer with the stress test running, but in silent mode, the middle was starting to get a bit warm. Balanced mode was warmer, but it's also performing better. The rest was still cool, and WASD felt fine though. It was cooler in extreme mode with the fans on automatic, but it's also louder too. It wasn't really that much different with the fans maxed out, but it definitely gets louder. Let's have a listen. The fans were always audible when doing nothing at idle in silent mode, which was kind of annoying and not exactly silent. Extreme mode with the fans on auto and the cooling pad was quieter than without the pad, so probably a better choice if you're after lower temps instead of using cooler boost and getting louder. The screen is 16 inches now, up from last year's 15.6. And it's 16 by 10 too, meaning there are more pixels vertically and just more viewable screen space. There's less bottom chin compared to last year's. Color gamut is quite good for a gaming laptop, though not as good compared to the OLED panel available in last year's GE67. That goes double for the contrast, which is way better with OLED. It is able to get fairly bright though, just a little under 500 nits at full brightness, and it doesn't drop off too quickly when you start lowering the brightness. The 3840 by 2400 120Hz screen configuration has a display switch in the MSI Center software. This gives you the option of swapping to 1920 by 1200 240Hz, so a lower resolution but faster response time, but it needs a reboot. The MSI Center software also has display overdrive enabled by default, which lowers response time at the expense of overshoot and undershoot. Average gray to gray screen response time was decent. In the 4K 120Hz mode, we're looking at 5.27 milliseconds. But then if we reboot into the faster 1080p 240Hz mode, this lowers to 4.17 milliseconds. Exactly what's needed for transitions to occur within the refresh window. It's a decent result compared to other laptops, but we've got higher resolution 240Hz panels that are quicker in others, though also many that are slower too. I was expecting the difference between 120Hz and 240Hz mode to be bigger, so this doesn't really seem worth rebooting for. It's also no match for last year's OLED. The total system latency is the amount of time between a mouse click and when a gunshot fire appears on the screen in CSGO. Despite the decent response time, the GE68 has a fairly average result here, and was behind the other 4070 laptops tested. There is a muck switch, so you can disable Optimus, but unfortunately there's no advanced Optimus, so you have to reboot to swap. This just doesn't seem like a feature that MSI are including in their gaming laptops this year. There's no G-Sync either, but you can use Adaptive Sync if Optimus is on. There was some backlight bleed. I never noticed it during normal use, but it will vary between panels. Although we've got a 3840 by 2400 screen here, for some reason we can't actually run games at this resolution. The highest they go is 2560 by 1600. I'm not sure why the games didn't let us pick that resolution, because it's certainly set to that in Windows. At the same time though, my testing has shown that RTX 4070 laptops aren't exactly 4K capable gaming beasts anyway, so it's probably not a massive deal. And the GE68 doesn't seem to go above RTX 4070 graphics either, so if you're getting it for gaming and the 2560 by 1600 screen option is cheaper, then it's probably worth considering over this. And if you do want more than an RTX 4070, like a 4080 or 4090, then I think you need to go up to the bigger GE78. But for now, let's find out how this year's GE68 performs in games and see how it compares against other laptops. Cyberpunk 2077 was tested the same on all laptops, and I've got the GE68 shown by the red highlight. At 1080p, it was quite close to the other RTX 4070 gaming laptops tested so far, which means that it's ahead of some 3080 Ti and 3070 Ti laptops, including last year's GE67 from MSI. At 1440p, last year's GE67 was now further ahead. It's only a small gap, and I've already shown how small the difference is between 3070 Ti and 4070 laptops in a separate video. Red Dead Redemption 2 was tested with the game's benchmark, and at 1080p, this was the fastest 4070 we've tested so far, but the difference is only a few frames. It's barely faster compared to last year's GE67 with 3070 Ti here, but just like the last game, at 1440p, the GE67 actually ends up a little faster, perhaps due to the 3070 Ti's bigger memory bus, or having a higher voltage limit. Control is a GPU-heavy game, even at 1080p, and last year's GE67 was basically the same in average FPS, but had much fewer dips in performance, as shown by its higher 1% low result, so a more stable experience. The same thing is seen at the higher 1440p resolution. Ever since Intel's 13th gen HX processors, some games like this have started producing inconsistent 1% low results, which may be a result of there simply being too many cores to power, but I still need to investigate that. It could also just be the smaller memory bus showing. Here are the 3D Mark results for those that find them useful. Now for some content creator tests. Adobe Premiere was tested with the Puget Systems benchmark tool. The GE68 wasn't doing as well as Lenovo's Legion Pro 5i with lower tier CPU and same GPU. Adobe Photoshop generally likes single-threaded performance, and the 13950 HX was now ahead of the 13900 HX in that Legion Pro 5i. But then on the other hand, the only other 4070 laptop we've tested with a 13900H was further ahead, so maybe this benchmark means nothing. GPU power matters more in DaVinci Resolve, and the GE68 is the best 4070 result so far, only beaten by 4080 or 4090 laptops. Blender is also GPU dependent, and like the games, there are a number of 3070 Ti laptops nearby. We've also tested SpecView Perf, which tests out various professional 3D workloads. MSI's Advanced BIOS provides you with almost unlimited customization once you enter the usual cheat code to access it. You can change things from power limits, temperature limits, memory timings, and far more. Linux support was tested with an Ubuntu 23.04 live CD. By default, the keyboard, touchpad, camera, speakers, Ethernet, and Wi-Fi all worked fine. All keyboard shortcuts for screen brightness, RGB brightness, volume, and max fan all worked fine too. A great result. Pricing and availability will change over time, so check the link below the video for updates and current sales. And if this laptop does go on sale, we'll be sure to add it to our gaminglaptop.deals website. We update that every day to include all of the latest sales, so check that out to get the best deal on your next gaming laptop. The cheapest I can find a GE68 with RTX 4070 graphics is for $2,550 US. It's really not that impressive when you consider that you can get a good RTX 4080 laptop for $150 less money. We've had this one on the deals site for a while now, and as we've seen, with the 4080 it offers way more FPS in games. I mean, even MSI's own GE67 from last year with RTX 3070 Ti was over $700 cheaper, and that was often either close or slightly ahead of the 4070 in this year's newer GE68. And while we're arguing in favor of RTX 3070 Ti laptops, let's not forget that good models can be found for even less than this at $1,400 and under. That puts the GE68 with 4070 graphics $1,100 more expensive than a 3070 Ti laptop that will probably perform close to it in most games. So is it worth spending $700 more to get the GE68 over last year's GE67? Honestly, for most people, no, probably not. Let me explain. Don't get me wrong, the new GE68 does certainly offer improvements over last year's GE67. It now supports faster PCIe Gen 5 storage, it's got a bigger 16-inch 16x10 screen, granted with no OLED now, because I don't think they make 16-inch OLED panels yet. The newer Intel 13th gen CPU offers more performance performance and faster memory speeds. The camera has infrared and a privacy shutter now, and both the CPU and GPU have liquid metal instead of just one. Something I think they missed is Advanced Optimus. Pretty much every other laptop at this price range, except for MSI, has Advanced Optimus now, so for some reason they're kind of behind in that regard. Anyway, those improvements are all well and great, but if your goal is just to play gaming, then the RTX 4070 isn't worth paying this much money for. It's just too expensive compared to alternatives with an RTX 3070 Ti. Of course, to be fair, the 4070 does support Nvidia's new frame generation feature, which does make gameplay in supported games feel smoother. But $700 smoother compared to last year's GE67? I don't think so. You can see all the difference between these two GPUs in this video next. I've tested with and without frame generation, ray tracing, and DLSS in 25 games to help you decide if the 4070 is worth the extra. So check that out next before buying your next laptop.